In the sanctuary of my memories, I often find solace. The gentle hum of the past always wraps around me like a warm blanket, a stark contrast to the chill I feel now. I remember nights with David, my son, the laughter that filled our small kitchen as I scraped together simple meals. Those were days filled with love, when even a pot of stew felt like a feast. David, a bright-eyed little boy with a shock of messy hair, would rush home from school, bursting through the door with stories from his day. I can still picture the way his face lit up at my cooking, as though I were crafting magic with each stir of the pot. I recall threading through his childhood, a series of sacrifices. Working multiple jobs was a relentless cycle, but his joy outweighed my exhaustion. Every dollar saved was another storybook I could buy. I nurtured his dreams, turning bedtime into adventures through tales of knights and dragons, instilling in him a heart full of compassion. Yet, my own dreams shrank into the background like the fading photographs on my mantelpiece. I had set aside my own ambitions, believing that raising him was my greatest contribution to the world. In those moments, with the smell of my cooking mingling with the scent of freshly baked cookies, I felt fulfilled, worth more than any career could ever make me. What I didn't foresee was the storm brewing beneath the surface, a woman who would change everything. When Eleanor entered our lives, everything shifted. At first, I welcomed her with open arms, brimming with joy for the love David had found. I distinctly remember the day they announced their engagement, a sun-drenched afternoon filled with laughter, the warmth of family surrounding us. But as the seasons changed, so did the fabric of our lives. Flashbacks flicker like old film reels, moments when Eleanor's sharp comments cut through the warmth I built. "This isn't how you do it, Margaret," she'd say, her tone steeped in superiority. She would stand beside me in the kitchen, arms crossed over her designer apron while I wrestled with my age-old recipes, critiquing every flip of a pancake, every dash of salt. I remember feeling her judgment like a weight on my shoulders, dampening my spirit. And yet, I held back. There was a time when I believed that acceptance was the best course, being the accommodating mother-in-law, the dutiful matriarch. I thought I could bake away my insecurities, that the flavor of my devotion would mask the bitterness of her undermining. But those early signs, I see now, were warnings I ignored. Each Sunday, as I set the table for family dinners, I clung to the hope that bringing everyone together would rekindle the warmth we once had. But Eleanor would find ways to stand between me and David, redirecting his gaze every time I tried to share a cherished memory. I recall the muted colors of that first Christmas after they wed, a palette washed with her control, my laughter dissolved into silence. Yet, despite the cracks appearing in our family veneer, my bond with David remained. He was my greatest achievement, the fruit of every sacrifice I'd made. Even now, as I recall those sweet evenings spent reading to him, I know there's a glimmer of love left, a flicker of light beneath the harsh words of Eleanor. That tenderness pulses in the background of my mind, reminding me that I matter, and that realization begins a subtle transformation within me. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart, I remind myself, so quiet yet so fierce. The memories fill me with resolve. I am not just a relic in this family. I am a mother, and I will not fade into the background. As I take a deep breath, a resolve settles within me. It is time to reflect on those sacrifices, not with regret but with purpose. A time to reclaim my rightful place, to confront the shadows that have settled all too comfortably in my home. Eleanor waltzed into our lives like an unwelcome storm, her confidence almost electric. I remember the day David introduced her to me, that bright morning bursting with sunshine as he beamed with pride. I was taken in by her charm at first, the way she spoke with such enthusiasm about our family. Yet, somewhere beneath her sugary words, I felt the unmistakable bitterness of condescension lingering, an unnameable current swirling around her edges like a dark cloud. The wedding day was a whirlwind of memories, but soon faded into something almost surreal. I cooked for weeks, determined to drown any nerves in rich flavors that would secure my place in their new life. Instead, I got the first taste of Eleanor's real persona. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be a celebration, but as I served my specialty dishes, all I could think of were her lingering criticisms. "Are you sure everyone would enjoy this? It's so traditional," she asked, her nose wrinkling slightly as if my family's heritage was somehow inferior. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was just nerves before the big day. As holiday seasons rolled around, Eleanor managed to devise ways to undermine me further, and each Christmas turned into a calculated display of power. I would anxiously arrange decoration, a labor of love, but she'd deftly rearrange them to suit her taste, creating an atmosphere that screamed her authority. Each twinkling light felt less like a symbol of joy and more like a spotlight, illuminating my growing insignificance. The first sign of Eleanor's true colors revealed itself during a family lunch, a gathering that should have warmed my heart. "Why do you make such a big deal of everything? It's just food," she quipped, dismissing my carefully prepared roast. I stood, frozen, a fork halfway to my mouth, feeling my stomach twist heavily. How could someone so close to my son mock what I had poured my love into? It was as if she wanted to diminish me with every bite. David, sitting across from me, laughed lightly at the comment, but I could see the faint flicker of discomfort in his eyes. In that moment, I realized it was not just Eleanor's words that pierced me. It was his silence that cut deeper. He had not come to my defense, as if she had placed a wall between us, forcing him to choose between the comfort of his wife and the love of his mother. The dichotomy smothered me, and instead of defending myself, I took another bite, swallowing my hurt with the roast. Then there were the whispers, those subtle, scornful remarks, as if they were a chorus behind my back. "Oh, Margaret makes it the old-fashioned way. Bless her heart," Eleanor would chuckle, her words seasoned with mockery. My heart ached each time. All our family gatherings devolved into me being the punchline in a facade of merriment constructed by Eleanor. She held court at the table, a conductor orchestrating the laughter, while I remained a forgotten note in the background. The children adored me. I could see it in their bright smiles and the way they gravitated toward my stories. Yet Eleanor would often intervene. "Now, why don't we play a game instead of hearing Grandma's old tales?" Her insistence rang hollow and unmistakable, snuffing out their glee like the flame of a candle. I felt myself withdraw slowly, sinking into the shadows of her spotlight. I spent sleepless nights sobering up after the joyless gatherings, tears slipping down my cheeks as I clutched the family photos that displayed warmer times. On particularly lonely evenings, I would sip chamomile tea, the soothing fragrance enveloping me, coaxing long-buried hopes to the surface. I could feel the warmth of the past wrapped around me like an embrace, but each pang of nostalgia quickly turned to bitterness in the presence of recent memories. A cacophony of Eleanor's jeers, yet beneath the surface of this turmoil, the realization that something had to change dawned slowly. The glimmers of hope still flickered. I had watched as our family's love settled into Eleanor's fabricated script, seeing my role seeping away like ink on wet paper. My inner dialogue shifted, crafting ideas of standing tall. How could I be reduced to the status of an ornament on their tree? Rooted deep inside me was the conviction that I had an equal right to share this space, to reclaim my voice at this table. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart, I repeated softly in the dark. One evening, as I sat amidst my home that echoed with silence and memories, I made a decision. I couldn't allow Eleanor's influence to corrode the affection built over years of sacrifice. I would observe, I would gather, and I would prepare. I could sense a storm brewing, one that would shift the tides. But for now, patience was key. I could be the quiet force lurking beneath the surface. In my heart, I clung to the hope that love could be restored, not just for my son, but for myself. As the days turned into weeks, the small, silent humiliations piled up, each one a sliver that dug deeper into my heart. Eleanor crafted perfect moments in our family gatherings, but somehow I always found myself on the outside, looking in, ever the spectator, never the participant. I became increasingly aware of her mastery over the narrative. Take last month's birthday dinner for David. The festivities should have filled my spirit with joy, but instead, I found myself grasping tightly to the edge of my chair. Like clockwork, Eleanor orchestrated every detail, from the invitations to the cake flavor. I watched in a daze as she proudly announced that she had dismissed my famous chocolate cake in favor of a trendy artisanal dessert. "It's all the rage, Margaret. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." Her words dripped with kindness, but I felt the edges of her smile cut through the air, sharp and calculated. Eleanor reveled in her role as the family's prima donna, and, more importantly, she celebrated her ability to overshadow me. I had baked that cake for years, knowing it brought David joy, and now it was just a dim memory, discarded as casually as wrapping paper. But there was something in David that day, a pause in his laughter when he took a bite of the trendy dessert, a shadow that crossed his face as he glanced toward me. For a moment, there existed a connection, a thread of unspoken understanding, but before I could grasp it, the moment slipped away. Eleanor seized the limelight again, her laughter erupting like fireworks, diverting attention from the flicker of dissatisfaction. The petty jabs continued even on quiet afternoons when I visited their home. During one Sunday lunch, I sliced freshly baked bread, the aroma inviting, tender, the way I had taught David to appreciate. Just as I lifted my knife, Eleanor's voice chimed in, casual yet piercing. "You always did put too much love into your bread, Margaret. Isn't it a little heavy?" The laughter that followed was a clear ripple, drawing attention away from me, leaving me breathless in its wake. Those hollow comments, sugar-coated but deadly, became relentless. Eleanor would deliver them with a practiced ease, as though they were merely banter between family. I began to notice the way her words obscured the core of my identity, undermining decades of sacrifice with each carefully calculated phrasing. Here I was, left to navigate my own home, with the looming threat of her disdain hanging over me, veiling the love I offered with a curtain of ridicule. In those moments, I was reduced to silence. I swallowed my words as if they were stones cementing my lips shut. My attempts to engage in conversation fell flat. The once fertile ground of laughter now lay parched and cracked. All the warmth I had cultivated over the years began to bleed out, leaving me aching for any acknowledgement of my position in this family. I drifted through gatherings like a ghost, feeling my heart tighten as kids laughed while Eleanor directed their attention away from me. David sat next to her, caught in her orbit, oblivious to the disconnect. "Come play with me. Grandma, can you tell us stories after?" they would ask, their eyes gleaming with innocence. But before I could respond, Eleanor would cut them off, suggesting puppet shows or board games that diverted their attention. It was as if she wielded a wand, magically controlling their joy while I faded into the wallpaper. I watched the children darting around us, their laughter drowning my efforts, the sense of being valued slipping further away. I sat, mind turning brittle as I realized how effectively she could manipulate not just David's attention, but also the children's adoration. At times, I attempted to join in, to reclaim those fleeting moments, but I often found myself floundering in her world, the weight of my presence diminished in her company. Whenever I could escape the din of family life, I sought refuge in my own home. I regained some strength within those four walls. I surrounded myself with framed photographs of cherished memories. Each picture, painstakingly curated with my love, became my solace. I spent hours looking through old family albums, tracing the lines of my life, the faces that mattered. And yet, with every passing moment, I prepared strategically. I would observe Eleanor carefully, noting her tactics, absorbing her insidious influence. The days and months seemed to stretch indefinitely, yet something inside me simmered. My internal dialogue strengthened, reminding me that love could still thaw the ice that settled unforgivingly between us. That mantra, "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart," began to echo more strongly in my mind. I would gather my strength, awaiting the right moment to confront the tangled threads of manipulation. Eleanor's dominance would not define me. Slowly but surely, my resolve to reclaim my place in this family reinforced itself. Clawing through the layers of quiet traumas, I committed each humiliation to memory as evidence in my heart, pieces of a puzzle that I would soon solve. In doing so, I turned my silent pain into power, ready to face Eleanor head-on, not with bitterness but with the quiet dignity that I had nearly forgotten. The day of David's birthday party arrived, and with it a storm was brewing. A storm not of rain but of tension. Eleanor had thrown together a grand celebration, an event that catered to her social circles, replete with decorations that bore no trace of my influence. Balloons adorned with the latest characters and catered food became the hallmark of another day I would feel minimized. The moment guests began arriving, I sensed the familiar hold that Eleanor had over the atmosphere. Voices echoed with excitement, but I felt trapped in the echo of my own silence. I entered their house already filled with chatter and laughter. The sweet scent of cake wafted toward me, but instead of comforting, it felt like a reminder of every moment I had been edged out. As I stepped into the living room, I caught sight of my son beaming, surrounded by friends, their spontaneous laughter wrapping around him like a protective shield. I stood at the periphery, holding tightly to the plate of homemade cookies I had brought, my heart heavy with a familiar dread. With every passing minute, Eleanor flitted about like an expertly trained conductor. "You all must try these," she exclaimed, taking the cookies from my hands to display them on a platter meant for her coordinated appetizers. As she rearranged the tray, a sense of foreboding washed over me. "What do you call these again, Margaret?" she asked, eyes alight with feigned curiosity, but the undertone of her voice carried a challenge. "Chocolate chip," I replied softly, fighting back the pressing knot in my throat. "Oh, those are so retro," she shot back, and as laughter erupted from a nearby group of women, I felt my cheeks burn. They already knew the taste of my cookies, the recipe that had been perfected over years, the laughter and kindness folded into each batch. Yet here I was reduced to a relic of the past, and for the first time in years I felt truly invisible. "Let them eat it," Eleanor added, waving her hand dismissively. "I mean, it's not like the kids have any taste anyway. Her words were met with boisterous laughter, the women letting it ring out like a chorus, each note pressing harder into the air around me. I stood frozen. How could they find humor in using my offerings for ridicule? It was a moment that carved into my dignity like a deep wound. Suddenly, David's cheery voice called for me. "Mom!" He waved me over, his face brightening in a way that momentarily masked the surrounding gloom. But before I could navigate through the throng of bodies surrounding the food table, Eleanor, 3 steps ahead, swooped in. "Darling, come cut the cake," she announced, placing herself strategically between us. "Okay, Mom, but wait," David said, glancing back at me, confusion flickering in his blue eyes. I caught his glance, reaching out with every ounce of maternal love I could muster, trying to communicate that I was right there, even if Eleanor was shielding him from me. But, with a flourish, she led David away, and as I stood there, my heart sank. My voice trembled in the back of my throat as I watched them parade toward the cake. There it was, her cake, the lavish, perfectly iced confection that sparkled with flair but hid layers of exclusion. In that moment, I felt the fissures in my heart deepen. I had truly lost my place in this family. The party continued, filled with laughter and games. Every 5 minutes I could feel Eleanor's gaze assessing the crowd, ensuring that my meager attempts at connecting remained muted. "Isn't this such a fantastic party, Margaret?" she asked, but it felt like a jab. "You've just got to appreciate how far we've come in party planning since your time." With each comment, I gripped my plate tighter as the invisible walls pressed closer around me. The warmth of the sun brightened the yard outside, and I briefly contemplated leaving, but a glimmer of hope rooted me in place. I flexed my fingers, letting my anger simmer beneath the surface. I clenched my jaw to keep the words from spilling out, knowing this was a moment to witness and prepare. But the steady flow of jabs continued, weaving together a narrative to keep me at bay. Eleanor strategically included David, who spent more time entertaining his friends than acknowledging my presence. "Come on, kids, let's pose for photos," she called out, prompting squeals of delight from the children. They darted toward her, entranced, as I watched from the sidelines, arm frozen at my side. I felt like a relic being paraded around for display, dust settling on my significance. As the afternoon wore on, eventually, I gathered my resolve. An idea blossomed in my heart, a small seed of hope. I would confront Eleanor in front of everyone. Perhaps not directly, but I sensed this gathering could become a stage to reclaim my voice, to subtly announce my presence without resorting to anger. "Hey, David," I called out, my voice steady. "Can you come help me with something in the kitchen?" The moment hung in the air, eyes turning my way. Curiosity pricked at their attention. David paused, glancing between me and Eleanor. The brief hesitation told me all I needed to know. He sensed the tension, the chasm that had formed. "Sure, Mom," he said, breaking away from the throng. And for a brief moment, I felt lighter. Eleanor's lips thinned and something hard flickered in her eyes, but I didn't glance back. As I led David into the kitchen, I felt alive, in control of this tiny moment. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, his brow furrowed. I took a breath, preparing to share my pain, but instead, I smiled softly. "Nothing. Just wanted to know if you like the cookies." "Oh, of course. They're great. You know, it's not a party without Grandma's cookies." "I'm glad you think so. And I want you to know," I paused, finding strength in the moment, "no matter what happens, my love is always with you, David. No one can take that away." His eyes softened, a warmth spreading in his expression. As I sensed Eleanor approaching, the tension renewed. The moment would crescendo soon enough, but as we returned to the party, I felt emboldened. I had my backup plan, my heart pulsed with purpose. I was reclaiming my dignity, one small moment at a time. As we re-entered the party, the laughter crescendoed, wrapping around us like a tightening embrace. Eleanor had commandeered the space, effectively seizing every opportunity to flaunt her status. But now I felt a significant shift within me. The time for subtlety was drawing near. I could build my presence slowly, brick by brick, until my voice echoed as loudly as Eleanor's. As I glanced around, I caught sight of various family members engaged in conversation, their faces painted with amusement and good humor. David chatted happily with a friend, a stark reminder of just how easy it was for him to forget the ongoing tensions. I steadied my breath. Eleanor's voice rose above the crowd, proclaiming the virtues of her carefully curated snack table. She was doing exactly what I had feared, using this party to consolidate her power while I withered in the shadows. Yet instead of yielding to despair, fire ignited within me. I took my place at the heart of the kitchen, armed with a spatula and a stack of my cookies. I had spent hours preparing them, full of love and nostalgia, and now I would use them to my advantage. I wanted the children to know the taste of home, to savor those familiar flavors, and perhaps I would show Eleanor that even amidst the chaos, love still thrived. With determination fueling my steps, I placed the cookies on a smaller table, positioned it strategically near the front door, the one place where everyone would filter through. Not long after, a few children came by. "Grandma Margaret, look!" they exclaimed, bouncing on their heels excitedly. "You all want a cookie?" I asked, my tone light and inviting, the sheer excitement in their eyes invigorating my spirit. "Yes," they chorused, moving closer, marveling at the spread I had placed before them. Old-fashioned chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the oven, their edges golden and crisp, beckoning them. Just as I expected, Eleanor strolled over, a smirk dancing around her lips, but I couldn't allow her to throw me off balance. Instead, I flashed her a knowing smile as the children crowded around eagerly, their hands reaching for the delicious treats. "Oh, look at this! Grandma Margaret and her old-fashioned cookies," Eleanor said, amusement dripping from her words. "The kids won't know what to do with so much sugar. You're going to spoil them." As she spoke, excitement in the children's eyes sparked, igniting their delight for my treats. "No, these are the best," one of them quipped, cramming half a cookie into his mouth, a cascade of crumbs spraying as he grinned. This moment became my shield, and I took a breath, feeling the warmth of their energy. "Exactly. Delicious is the new cool," I replied, meeting Eleanor's gaze with unwavering confidence. The children giggled, racing around with their newfound treasures, momentarily distracting them from Eleanor's barbs. The success was bittersweet. I could see the indignation rising in Eleanor, and yet that thrill of connection made it worth it. I silently plotted my next move while witnessing how inspiringly simple it was to create joy without her interference. As the party progressed, I coaxed the children into a game, a traditional one I used to play with David. "Let's have a storytelling contest. Whoever tells the best story gets a cookie." With each enthusiastic shout, I could feel the energy shift. Me, I want to go first," they clamored, their excitement infectious. As they took turns spinning tales of heroes and daring adventures, I locked eyes with David. I saw an expression of happiness entwined with pride, and my heart swelled. Yet Eleanor, sensing the burgeoning rebellion against her authority, swooped in to redirect them. "Let's not keep David away from his friends for too long." Her tone edged with intent. I chuckled lightly, masking the heat of my frustration. "It's a quick game, just a moment of fun. Right, David?" When he nodded, glancing at me with that supportive warmth, I could see daylight emerging through cracks in the wall Eleanor had built around our family. With each child that shared their story, I felt a tangible wave of connection emanating from me, growing outward, rippling towards everyone present at the celebration. The game drew attention, pulling in other family members, adults, and children alike, and my kitchen became something of a gathering point, a hub for laughter and excitement. I smiled knowingly. This was how I would lay claim to my space back in this family, with joy that would serve as my battle cry. David approached, feigning seriousness as he asked, "Mom, can I tell a story that really happened?" He whispered to me, his eyes bright with mischief. "Absolutely. I'd love to hear it," I said, heart brimming with affection. "Once upon a time, my grandma Margaret made the best cookies," he began, and laughter rippled through the crowd as he animatedly retold moments from our joyous times. The stories of baking, of him sneaking bites of raw cookie dough, and of his happy childhood. Eleanor seethed, her carefully constructed facade cracking ever so slightly. She could see the unity forming in front of her, a front of love, laughter, and nostalgia for all that was untainted by her influence. My heart soared with every smile shared, every memory rekindled. "David, you really loved those cookies, didn't you?" I teased as he continued to draw in his listeners, and they responded with laughter. "Well, all cookies from Grandma!" he exclaimed, eyes shining brightly with recognition. My chest filled with pride as I watched Eleanor's frustration transform into icy silence. Just when I thought I had carved out a space for myself, Eleanor stepped forward, aiming to regain authority over the direction of events. "All right, everyone, time for the real highlight. Let's gather around for cake," she announced, her voice booming as if to drown out the mounting energy building around me. As the crowd turned to follow her, I took a breath, sensing the turning tide. "But first, everyone, one last cookie," I called out, reaching for the tray at the corner of the table. At that moment, I delivered my promise in spades, placing the warm cookies in their hands. "Eat these while you listen." In the distance, I witnessed the light in David's eyes unsullied by disapproval. His joy echoed my intentions. I envisioned the battles ahead, but now I stood firm, armed with love and determination. This was no longer about rivalry, but about restoring what had once been the center of our family. The game culminated with cheers and applause, yet each round strengthened my resolve. The warm atmosphere thickened as we laughed together. My heart surged. Eleanor's disdain wouldn't define my existence. I would continue crafting my presence, not through anger but through the powerful legacy of love. As evening approached, laughter filled the air, elevating my spirit. I held fast to the belief that soon David would see through Eleanor's facade and ground himself in the warmth of our shared history. And so the evening unfolded, a domino effect toward reclaiming my rightful place at the table. The evening wore on, the golden light of dusk spilling into the party, cocooning us in its warmth. I almost forgot about the lingering tension until Eleanor's poised smile returned, perfectly painted to regain control. The very facade I recognized so well. She had scripted this evening to eclipse my small victories, and I could feel the clouds of her discontent looming over me once again. "All right, everyone, time for cake," she called, her tone steadfast, but the small tremor in her voice betrayed her unease. I watched as she guided David to the center, the whole gathering shifting toward the makeshift table adorned with the grand cake she had created. A showstopper, yes, but devoid of the heart that ingredients like love and warmth could bring. The children largely drifted toward the cake, their youthful excitement translating into shouts of glee. As I watched the familiar motions of her dominance unfold, I felt something blossom within me, a mixture of resolve and urgency. It was clear that my time to confront the artificially constructed barriers was nearing. This occasion was a crossroads. Everyone gathered here was free to witness the stark contrast between genuine connection and hollow grandeur. "David," I called out, steadying my breath to contain the weight of my intention within the bubble of excitement. "Why don't you tell everyone what you love most about Grandma's cookies?" The moment stretched, and all eyes turned towards him, the air thick with anticipation. He smiled, realizing the thread of our shared history that flared to life in that question. "They remind me of all the fun we had baking together," he exclaimed, his voice buoyant, resonating like a bell ringing in the stillness of night. Eleanor's smile faltered for a brief moment, replaced by a thin line, but she quickly masked it with her performer's poise. "David, sweetie, let's not bring up every little thing for dessert," she shot back, her tone light but the underlying contempt unmistakable. It was as if her words were tools meant to carve away at my devotion, undermining the foundation I had carefully reconstructed. For the first time, I felt an undeniable support welling within me, emboldening my voice to rise. "But those moments matter, Eleanor," I interjected, my heart racing against the breadth of the crowd. "They illustrate the love we've shared. They create the smiles everyone sees today." Eleanor's facade cracked, and I could see genuine surprise flicker across her carefully crafted expression. The silence felt sharp. It pinned intrigue to the air. I seized the opportunity, my gaze steady toward the gathering, especially David. We shared laughter in those moments. We made memories. My cookies represent something more. Family. The words hung there, potent, encapsulating the essence of my intent, and I felt the weight of every person in the room shift subtly toward me. The haze of Eleanor's control began to dissipate, revealing perhaps an unexpected partnership. "Memories can be so powerful, can't they?" I continued, my determination unwavering despite the palpable tension. "They are what bind us. No fancy tables will ever replace that. It's the love and connection that matter, not what's displayed on this table." Eleanor jutted her chin defiantly, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. "Not everyone shares that perspective, Margaret. People enjoy celebrating milestones with a sense of extravagance." "True," I replied in defiance of her poise, "but that's why we need the balance. We need to cherish what's genuine alongside what's glamorous, for each serves a different purpose, but neither can overshadow one another if we wish to nurture our family." Gradually, I turned my gaze to David. His eyes twinkled with realization. Recognition flickered in them as I spoke my heart. "And, David, it's moments like that, yours, those echoes of laughter over simple cookies, that create the tapestry of cherished family memories." Around us, other parents began nodding, children losing interest in the cake as they shifted their eyes to us. The giggles began to quiver, caught in the web of emotion, cascading off my words and into the anxious hearts of my listeners. I could sense their understanding, feel the shift belonging to something bigger, something intertwined with the threads that held family together. Eleanor's grip began to falter as awareness replaced arrogance in the crowd, the subtle realization that my silent battles were not in vain. The echoes of laughter, the warmth of cookies fresh from the oven, and the stories wrapped in joy bore witness to the undeniable truth that I fought for. You might not see it yet, but baking those cookies is more than nourishment. It creates a space where love flourishes, I went on, turning my focus to the gathering, embodying the old rhythms of storytelling. And one day, who knows, maybe these moments will be the centerpiece of a gathering for future generations, laughter ringing through the ages. As I spoke, I caught sight of Eleanor shifting, glancing at their stealing glances, the subtle connections realigning between her and the guests. I felt the first tremors of victory ripple through the air. Whatever vestige of control she had woven was all but unraveling right there in front of her audience. Finally, I looked back to David, seeing his unwavering support. In him, I found my strength. And maybe one day, even you, David, will bring your children cookies that will make them laugh over stories just like ours. Eleanor narrowed her eyes, her mask slipping further. I felt a rush of triumph bloom. I had poured my spirit into reclaiming my space, forging new connections while dissolving her carefully constructed barriers. All right, all right. Eleanor folded under the pressure, her voice deploying a mock cheerfulness that seemed increasingly futile. Let's cut the cake. Who wants cake? She cried, her tone forced, rallying the wandering attention away from the shift that had taken root. As she sliced the cake, the tension hadn't entirely left the air, but I could feel the warmth of connection lingering like an old friend returning after a long absence. I breathed deeply, clasping my hands together as David leaned closer. You did great, Mom, he whispered, his eyes radiating pride and affection. Thank you, sweetheart, I murmured softly, letting gratitude wash over me. In that pivotal moment, beneath the flickering fluorescent lights, amongst the chaos or a rich family gathering filled with laughter, I stood tall, not as an ornament but as the cornerstone my family relied upon. The air shifted, reconstructing an unbreakable bond, one that Eleanor couldn't manipulate away so easily. Who wants some cake? Eleanor shouted, her voice strained in an attempt to regain control of the evening. The guests turned their attention towards the elegant display, but the laughter that once enveloped us had morphed into a cautious quiet, the energy that had built up between us hanging, heavy and fragile. As she served the slices, my heart swelled with unexpected warmth. It was comforting to bask in the shared joy, even while her tension simmered just below the surface. Our earlier connection lingered, refusing to be completely washed away by grandiosity. The cookies are amazing, Margaret. One of our distant relatives chimed in, earning nods of agreement. As smiles spread across the gathering, I felt a different kind of strength building, a soft resilience that nestled deep within me, eager to flourish. Eleanor's tight smile faltered at the compliment, the cracks in her facade widening. I sensed her anxieties mirrored in those around us as they exchanged knowing glances, wrestling with the awkward tension that seemed to distort the atmosphere. I took a step forward, my voice steady. It's not the grand displays that make these moments special, I said, turning my gaze toward the guests. It's the laughter and stories we share, our memories forged in loving connection, and not the trappings of extravagance. She pursed her lips, struggling to counter my earnestness. I saw the uncertainty cloud her eyes. Finally, in a small voice, she whispered, I just wanted it to be perfect. I wanted everyone to enjoy themselves. Eleanor, people enjoy themselves when they feel connected, I replied, willing to embrace both her vulnerability and her struggles. It's okay to miss the mark. We learn and grow. We create space for genuine moments. That's what family means. The room grew still, a collective breath held between us. I finally turned to David, who stood by my side, silently radiating pride and support. What truly matters is building those connections, I asserted, my heart pounding with conviction. David chimed in, his voice clear. Mom's right, Eleanor. I want to have fun with you both, my family. I want us to be close, like we used to be. Those words hung in the air, delicate but powerful, as the energy shifted once more around the room. I could see remnants of Eleanor's defenses quiet down, and her posture softened, the authoritative tension that had once gripped her wavering under the weight of our shared honesty. "Can we find a way to start over?" she asked at last, her voice softer now, as if nervous but willing to acknowledge the journey ahead. "Yes," I said immediately, the relief washing over me like a cool breeze on a hot day. "Let's focus on nurturing our family. Let's lay the foundations for love, laughter, and cherished memories. Let's embrace what truly matters." Guests began to murmur their agreement, nodding in alliance. I felt the warmth spread through the room, tethering everyone together. With simple gestures, we were forging connections anew, bonds of laughter weaving stronger than before. Eleanor took a small step forward, vulnerability dancing in her eyes. "I can't promise I will always have the right approach, but I want to. I want to make this work." "We all want that," I replied, moving closer, extending my hand in both invitation and solace. "No one here has to be perfect. The invitation is to be real, to lean on each other." As we exchanged smiles, I knew we were on the brink of a new beginning. To family, may we choose love, laughter, and cookies over competition. I raised my glass, my voice ringing with a newfound brightness. The guests erupted into a chorus of agreement, the tension that had once encapsulated us now dissipating with warmth and joy. Cheers echoed around, lifting spirits high, a promise of better times to come. In that uplifting moment, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and clarity, a weight lifted. I embraced my role as the cornerstone of our family, ready to navigate the storms and calm alike, knowing we would do so together. As laughter and warmth enveloped us, my gaze met Eleanor's once more, and I sensed that we were united in a commitment to growth and connection. This was our moment to heal, to bolster our relationships through understanding. We would thrive, not just survive, as a family filled with love and laughter.